Okay, so my recent recordings have been kind of robotic when it comes to the mechanics videos, and that's not the way I wanted it to be. So I'm going to be uh, more off the cuff and less scripted. I mean, it's pretty obvious that I write these down, but if it's going to sound like that, it's just awful. So I'm going to try and do it a little bit looser this time around. So, getting back to where we started, from the last video, we were on spell tomes. Spell tomes are another gift from Melwa. Melwa is a place that is rife with magic. I mean, it's everywhere, and almost everyone knows how to do it, as opposed to Granzus, where it's more of a special thing. Only certain types of people can do it. But in Melwa, there are literally places where the magic erupts out of the ground. By the way, to clear up any confusion on how these new items get to Granzus, they come from Melwa, which is, like I have stated before, is now in a military pact with Granzus to fight against Hearthstone. When Duke Edmund falls ill in Dragon's Dogma, it happens because the dragon's magic is broken, and when he took his deal, and you killed the dragon's magic failed, and so his deal also failed. So he fell ill, and he thought that the Arisen had taken another deal, and it had canceled out his deal. So he probably actually went through that as an Arisen before and canceled someone else's deal out. But anyway, now that he's fallen ill, he's become paranoid and anxious, and he believes that the Arisen is in league with Hearthstone to conquer Granzus in this weakened state, because Granzus has still had those effects that you saw at the end of Dragon's Dogma, including that giant hole in the ground. But now it just leads down into a crater. There's nothing there. Like, you can't jump into it like you did before and actually warp to another part of the world. It's now, if anyone falls in, it's just, they fall to the ground and die. So because of him realizing that the Arisen must have taken the deal from the dragon and needing a scapegoat, and of course at this time Granzus is in a fucking flurry, like there's all kinds of crazy shit going on. Of course, so many people have died. The town is absolutely destroyed. Duke Edmund, in his senility and his anxious paranoia, he marks the envoys of Hearthstone who have come to help him. He marks them as enemies. And so he begins this 2-year battle plan where he sends envoys out all over the continent of Granzus to come back to Grand Soren, get ready. They're not really told when they send the reports. Obviously, you don't want a secret plan getting out, but he basically calls all of his troops back, and he also sends his most trusted troops to Melwa to explain to them the situation, explain to them that they require their assistance in battle, and that they won't say who they're going to war with at the time. He didn't say until he received the equipment, but this was under threat of war. And so Melwa, being a civilization that has had a violent history of war, they at this time have learned and considered themselves to be high society, and so they don't fight wars directly themselves anymore. In fact, they don't even have a standing militia. They rely on mercenary groups, and with the world the way it was, broken by the dragon's magic, there's a lot of difficulty getting troops nowadays. They didn't want a war with Granzus, even if they could go out and get some mercenary troops. They wouldn't want to fight with Granzus because it would be bloody, it would be long. And they're thinking Granzus is still the military powerhouse that it was. So they don't know that the devastation is stronger in Granzus than it is anywhere else in the world. Even with the dragon's attack. So they're expecting that Granzus is on a high alert, and so they capitulate. They send equipment, they send soldiers, they send They're tacticians to help Granzus in this war effort against Hearthstone, which before Melwar had a sordid past with, but they weren't really, hostile to Hearthstone. But seeing as there was a threat of violence dealt to them by Granzus, they capitulate in the end. And this is how this new equipment and these new enemy types get to Granzus as well. These Melwar will be sending over soldiers that not only is their armor encrusted, it has runes of magic on it. So what will happen is that they will actually deflect and block certain types of magics, but they also have a lot of mages that they send over to aid Granzus. So you'll also have to come up against those mages quite more often than you did in Dragon's Dogma. Okay, and then there's the Ranger. And the Ranger takes the place of the Ranger from Dragon's Dogma and the Strider. It's just smashing those two together. The giant bow that the Ranger had in Dragon's Dogma was cartoonish and ridiculous, and so to make it a little bit more immersive and to make it look better, the Rifleman takes their position, and the Rifleman will now play the part of damage dealer, range damage dealer. The Ranger, on the other hand, in the Dragon's Creed, is made for dipping in and out of combat quickly. They have the fastest ranged abilities of any other focus, and they have the most evasive opportunities. Their evasive opportunities are actually linked to a lot of their skills that you'll be utilizing, and that'll just be native to the Ranger. They also climb faster than any other focus, and they can do double damage to any critical points on enemies. They have the ability naturally, it's a natural ability of the Ranger to scout and mark enemies on the map or on the screen of the game and highlight enemy weaknesses, which players can only exploit once the Ranger is there. So what this means is you'll go through you'll just aim down the sight with the bow, and when you hold the reticle on a specific point of the enemy for long enough, that part of the enemy, the weak part of the enemy, will become highlighted, and the other pawns can actually, if they hit that part of the enemy, will do more damage than usual. In TDC, the Ranger does the least damage overall, but they can easily inflict non-magical debilitations like confusion or torpor with specialized tipped arrows, and they even have the ability, as I'll explain later, with the single dagger weapon focus or weapon specialization to utilize certain potions and poisons or tonics on their dagger, and that can cause specific debilitations as well, physical debilitations only. The bow is the Ranger's mainstay. You always want to go into battle with a bow if you're a Ranger. So you'll be able to attack from just about any distance. It won't be as far as magic can go, but of course you'll be able to be a hell of a lot more maneuverable when you have a bow rather than when you're casting magic. With the bow, your skills, all of the skills that you get can be equipped with specialized arrows, and these specialized arrows will do different things. So it's not where you'll pick up poison arrows and you get like 30 poison arrows. You get unlimited of whatever arrow type you're getting. It's just that they come with special exceptions. So poison arrows do damage over time and can cause poison to certain enemies, but they don't do as much damage as steel-tipped arrows. Steel-tipped arrows are your basic arrow type. They actually move faster than than the specialized arrow types, and they can go farther. But then you can get things like explosive arrow types, where it takes longer to knock each arrow, but of course at the end of it you get an explosion. And those things can be equipped to any skill with the bow. Then you have the double dagger style, and the double daggers uses the sweeping slashes of the Ranger's daggers to do the most damage that this focus can possibly do, which is not a lot, but it's If you want to be a kind of roguish character, then you have that option, and you can easily take care of smaller enemies or cause larger enemies to, or at least chip away at larger enemies' health. And then and I think the most interesting one personally to me, is the ranger with the single dagger. The single dagger style, it does the least physical damage of any focus in the game, but it causes extreme debilitation. You'll be able to do everything from putting oil on your blade that can cast at a light as you're using a skill, or poisoning enemies, or turning enemies against each other, or causing enemies to stamina to drop to 0 so they get tired. That should be the kind of thing that the single dagger is able to do. So it's like the ultimate support style in that case. Once again, you'll have to choose your focus at specific points, specific safe areas in the world, certain encampments and things like that. You'll be able to change your focus. You can't change your focus out in the field, but you will be able to take several weapons with you and be able to switch between those weapons on the fly by pressing the triangle button. You can have a weapon on your hip, on your back, and attached to your hand at the same time. So a total of 3 weapons selectable on your character. This will weigh you down considerably, of course, so you have to be careful of overusing. In your hand will go shields and spell tomes. On your hip go swords and daggers, and on your back goes rifles, spears, great blades, pikes, staves, and bows. Attaching skills is once again done by putting those skills to a certain weapon category. So, for instance, swords have a particular set of skills, and great blades have a different set of skills. Magic this time around can be channeled through the player's hands. It doesn't have to go through a staff or a spell tome, but if you cause a misalignment, like for instance, if you are a ranger using fireball or a warrior using fireball, the damage and distance of the attack will be muted. However, it will still considerably affect creatures that are weak to it, for instance, like wolves. By the way, misalignment refers to when the player chooses to attach an incorrect weapon, skill, or piece of armor to their character. In Dragon's Dogma, you couldn't do that at all, which was kind of annoying. It stifles customization, but I think that the developers did it because they wanted the game to be very focused on team battling. And other than that, I really don't know what else could have been the reason. It should, and it has to be that reason in particular. But the Dragon's Creed still requires you to go into battle in a team if you want to succeed, or if you don't want to, have the shit kicked out of you. It's just that allowing misalignments allows the player more customization. The way to balance this is that you have to accept certain consequences with those misalignments. Like, for instance, range is shorter and damage is less, or something like that, or the player takes a longer time to charge whatever attack they're doing. This keeps the distinction between the battling system, and it makes it stay relevant within the game. So you can't be a super powerful wizard using, I don't know, Grand Maelstrom and have really powerful heavy armor on. It would take a lot of the challenge out of the game, or at least it threatens to do that if we're not careful with balancing it correctly. But you still should have the option to do that if that's what you want to do. You should just have to take certain consequences, and that's what I've devised would be sensible to do.